You characterize China as an imperialist occupying power, and that's generated a little bit of buzz on Twitter. Well, why would you say such a thing, for example? What makes you characterize China as an occupying and hostile imperialist power?
So I think there's a couple of reasons. One is that I note that some of the other claimant states, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, sometimes we see them sort of wag their finger at the Philippines and say, you're provoking China, you're complicating the situation, you're hyping the situation. And I'm trying to make the point that the Philippine situation is very different from them. And they do not have a military base in their exclusive economic zone, a Chinese military base. They don't have their access to major shoals like Sabina Shoal, Scarborough Shoal, Sakatama Shoal restricted by a hostile power. And what China wants as an occupier, and again, the idea of a maritime occupation is kind of new, but I think you have to look at it that way. Their presence in the West Philippine Sea is so overwhelming that it's clear that what they're trying to do is subdue all resistance. And so that brings us to the other point, which is the Philippines is going to have to start looking at this security problem, not as responding to this incursion or that incident, but this is a long-term nonviolent resistance against an occupying force.
You mentioned that it will be a long-term insurgency. That's the term you use. How do you see this playing out in the next few decades in your mind? How would such an insurgency look like? And what are the chances of the Philippines actually succeeding? You compared it to Gandhi and the Free India movement, for example. Is it really the same? And what are the chances of succeeding?
Well, there's no such thing as a perfect analogy, and this is kind of an unprecedented situation as with the maritime occupation. But I drew the analogy with Gandhi because the Philippines has chosen the way of nonviolence. And so if you're going to do that as a resistance, you have to use other tools. And so legal tools like the arbitral tribunal, of course, is one of them. And there are a number of other legal avenues that the Philippines could pursue. Informational tools like the Transparency Initiative is another way to do it. I think that's been extremely successful in showing China to be an occupying force. And the diplomatic tools, economic tools. So it has to look at this as a long-term resistance campaign and then build a strategy around that. The Transparency Initiative becomes one tactic in the tool bag in that long-term strategy.